So, what on earth does a crab shell have to do with a soldier surviving a catastrophic injury on the battlefield? It sounds like a strange riddle, I know, but the answer is actually this incredible piece of science that is literally changing the game in emergency medicine. Today, we're going to dive into the amazing technology behind these advanced bandages that stop massive bleeding in its tracks, and you'll see it all starts in a place you would never, ever expect.
All right, let's get right into it. To understand why this stuff is so important, you have to understand the world of trauma care. And in that world, everything, and I mean everything, is a race against the clock. When someone is badly hurt, the wound itself is a huge problem, obviously. But the single biggest enemy, it's time.
You know, paramedics and combat medics have a name for this. They call it the Platinum 10 minutes. It's this super critical window, just 10 minutes after a severe injury, where you have to intervene to stop a person from bleeding to death. It's a process called exsanguination. If you go past those 10 minutes, the odds of survival just plummet.
Now, for the longest time, the go-to procedure was pretty simple, right? Just apply a ton of pressure and hope for the best. But here's the problem. What do you do when the wound is in a place where you can't just slap on a tourniquet? Think about the neck or the groin. In these really tough situations, especially in modern trauma, just pushing down and crossing your fingers, well, it's just not enough.
So this brings up a huge question. Our bodies have their own amazing, built-in system for clotting blood. Why does it sometimes fail so spectacularly? Well, the answer is a devastating biological chain reaction that kicks in when things get really bad.
Yeah, this is where it gets really scary. In cases of massive blood loss, the very systems that are designed to save our lives can actually break down and turn against us. It creates this vicious downward spiral that is incredibly difficult, almost impossible to escape from.
And this spiral has a terrifyingly accurate name: the trauma triad of death. It is a vicious cycle where severe bleeding sets off a cascade of failures all through the body. And the end result of that cascade is that the body completely loses its ability to clot blood at all.
Okay, so let's walk through how this works, because each step literally fuels the next one. First, as you lose a lot of blood, your body temperature crashes. That's hypothermia. Then, that cold, combined with less oxygen flowing around, causes acid to build up in your blood. That's called acidosis. And here's the real killer blow. When your blood gets acidic, it can't clot anymore. That's coagulopathy. So what happens? You bleed more, which makes you colder, which makes your blood even more acidic. See the cycle? It just keeps feeding on itself until it's too late.
So, to break this deadly cycle, scientists knew they had to find a solution that worked completely outside of the body's broken chemistry. They had to think way outside the box. And believe it or not, they found the answer in one of the most common places on Earth: the ocean.
So, the unexpected hero of our story is a substance called chitosan. It's a natural polymer, and it comes from chitin, which is just the stuff that makes up the tough outer shells of crabs, shrimp, and other crustaceans. It turns out this byproduct of the seafood industry holds the key to shutting down the trauma triad of death.
And this right here shows you exactly why it's so brilliant. Your body's clotting method is biological. It's a complicated cascade of chemical reactions, and as we've seen, it can fail. Chitosan, on the other hand, works physically. It doesn't care if your blood is cold or acidic. Its method is way more direct, way more simple, and totally reliable.
So how does it actually work? Well, it's pretty much just basic physics. It's all about electrical charge. See, chitosan is positively charged, and your red blood cells, they're negatively charged. So when you pack a gauze coated in chitosan into a deep wound, it acts like a super powerful magnet, just pulling all those red blood cells to it and creating an incredibly strong gel-like plug almost instantly. And this simple physical attraction is what makes chitosan a total game changer. It works completely on its own, without any help from the body's clotting factors. That means it even works on people taking blood thinners. On top of all that, it's biocompatible. Your body just breaks it down into a simple sugar, leaving nothing harmful behind. It creates this amazing seal, and it's perfectly safe.
But you know, scientists didn't just get this gold standard on the first try. It was a journey. This technology, driven in large part by military research, actually went through a few different generations of trial and error to get to where we are today.
And the evolution is pretty fascinating. The first generation agents used a mineral called zeolite. And yeah, it stopped the bleeding, but it did it through an intense chemical reaction that got so hot it literally cooked the patient's tissue, causing really bad burns. So, not ideal. The second generation switched to cal and clay. It was much safer, but it still had to rely on the body's own clotting system to work, which, as we know, is the whole problem. And that brings us to the third generation, quitosano, the solution that works physically, safely, and independently every single time.
So, quitosano is the gold standard today. But what's coming next? What does the future of stopping bleeding even look like? Well, I'll tell you, researchers are already working on some technologies that sound like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Get this. For deep, narrow wounds, like from a bullet, there's something called XStat. It's basically a syringe that injects dozens of tiny chitosan-coated sponges that expand to fill the wound cavity from the inside out. Even crazier, there are injectable hydrogels being developed that could, in theory, swim through your bloodstream, find an internal bleed, and seal it up on their own. And by studying how mussels and barnacles stick to rocks in the ocean, scientists are creating bioglues that might one day be strong enough to patch a beating heart.
So here's the big takeaway. We've made this huge fundamental shift. We've gone from passively just soaking up blood with cotton gauze to actively using molecular physics to engineer a solution right there at the wound site, a solution that can step in and override the body's own biological limits when they fail.
It's really incredible when you think about it. From a simple crab shell, we have created a shield against one of the biggest killers in trauma medicine. It just makes you wonder, what other secrets are hidden out there in nature, just waiting for us to discover them and turn them into the next generation of life-saving technology?